Woomera, which is officially called Woomera Village, is a town located in the far north region of South Australia, approximately 446 kilometers north of Adelaide. There is still the odd army vehicle in transit. We are in the Lake Hart Rest area, which is on the way to Woomera from Glendambo. There is an amazing view from here, but you can no longer drive right to the lake. We used to camp down by the lake in the early days of our travels. It is only a short 7-minute walk down to the lake, passing under the east-west railway line, but I was in no condition to make the walk this time. Lake Hart is a large salt lake. The base of the lake is made of salt crystals, and salt crystals float on the surface. If you put your hand in the water and let it dry, your whole hand turns white from all the fine salt powder. The lake used to be a salt mine with an old stockpile still there. There are still a few remains of the works there. Along the roads now there are fiber optic cables buried for telephone, internet, and TV. They have to have these booster sites at intervals to overcome losses. Woomera is located in the middle of a desert terrain where the average annual rainfall is only 190 millimeters, but there is a massive lake system in the area, which are mostly dry until the rains come. We enter Woomera via Pimba, which is little more than a rather old-style roadhouse, hub, and service station near the railway line. The old rolling stock and age of the roadhouse give Pimba a rather antiquated appearance. Spud's Roadhouse offers a range of services and facilities including a petrol station, bar, restaurant, accommodation, supermarket, and gaming.
Dancing beat. Hi everyone, I'm your best friend, back in town again. Hi everyone, I'm your best friend, back in town again. Let me get you on your dancing beat. Hi everyone, I'm your best friend, back in town again. Let me get you on your dancing beat.
Woomera is a purpose-built town designed by the Long Range Weapons Board of Administration to provide an isolated experimental ground for testing rockets. It is now accessible to the public, but when we first visited here we could only enter the town if somebody you knew sponsored you. We had friends there, so they got his approval before we could enter. Woomera also refers to the wider Royal Australian Air Force Woomera Range Complex, a large Australian Defence Force aerospace and systems testing range covering an area of approximately 122,000 square kilometres operated by the Royal Australian Air Force. The word Woomera describes a short stick used to launch a spear in the language of the local Aborigines. The name for the place came into existence in 1947. At the time it was preferred over a site which had been nominated by Canada. In 1946 the Australian government received a formal request from Britain to establish a rocket range 1,600 kilometres long and 300 kilometres wide. This was possible given the vast wastelands which existed in northwestern South Australia.
One of Woomera's major attractions is the Woomera Aircraft and Missile Park and Heritage Center, which tells the story of the town and its rocket range. The decision to build a rocket range was made in the post-war environment when the world was still recovering from the slaughter of World War II. As a result of German rocket attacks on Britain during that war, the British had decided they needed a rocket testing range, and the isolation of Woomera combined with its proximity to the railway siding at Pimba made it an ideal location. The facilities are used for space observation now, tracking of satellites and rocket launch testing by the United States Air Force, NASA and West Germany. The Defence Research Centre in Salisbury, South Australia operate the Woomera Test Range today. Military accommodation is now used as a detention centre for illegal immigrants. The Woomera Test Range is still a strategic defense asset used mainly for aerospace test and evaluation activities. It remains the largest land-based range in the world and hosts a wide spectrum of the ground, air and space activities for Australian and international government and commercial organisations. Outback travellers can also drop into the Woomera Cemetery and pay their respects to the man who made travel through much of Australia's outback possible, Australia's most famous outback road maker, Len Goodell. We have met Len and bought his book, Too Long in the Bush, which he autographed for us when we were living at Pimba. The babies' graves in the cemetery are a sad, disturbing reminder of the decade of nuclear testing that took place in the 1950s at Maralinga, up to 600 kilometers away. More than 60 lives were lost, many without explanation. Among them are the Woomera babies, some stillborn, others hours-old babies and toddlers who account for more than half the plots for the 1950s and 1960s. In all, the cemetery contains 23 graves for stillborn babies born in the hospital between December 1953 and September 1968, and a further 46 graves for other children who died around that period.
Construction of Woomera Village began in mid-1947 to cater for thousands of people moving there as part of the Anglo-Australian project. The project lasted for 34 years and saw Woomera become one of the most secret Allied establishments in operation during the Cold War. During its heyday, 1949-71, the village population reached around 7,000 as people lived and worked at Woomera and at Coolimilka campsite near Range Head, approximately 42 kilometers, 26 miles, west of Woomera Village within the Woomera prohibited area. However, by the end of the 1960s the Anglo-Australian joint project was rapidly winding down following the UK government's reduction in further experimental work. Woomera Village initially operated as a closed town between 1947 and 1982, when the facility supported the operations of the Woomera Rocket Range during the Anglo-Australia project. Since 1982, the general public has been able to visit and stay at Woomera. However, only Australian government, mostly Department of Defence, personnel and contractors to the Commonwealth are able to live at Woomera on a permanent basis. The settlement was established in 1947 as a result of the Department of Defence establishment of the adjacent rocket testing range. Following its construction over 1947-53, Woomera Village essentially operated under a specialised Commonwealth/Defence township management model rather than a local government, council, model. At the height of its operations, 1947-99, over 7,000 people lived in Woomera Village. To service the needs of the town during this period, the Woomera Board, staffed by members of the defence community at Woomera elected to the board by town residents, essentially acted in the role normally provided by a local government council.